Hey, what's up, everyone? Mendel here. Hope you're all doing awesome and wonderful. And over here waving is my good friend Scott from Chernobyl Studios. And first I want to say, Scott, how are you? But also your background changed. What happened?
So I'm doing pretty dang well, and actually, that Scott from Chernobyl Studios things has to change because I'm actually in Hertz Recording Studio now. So,
But for the people who don't know, Hertz Studios is, in my opinion, the best metal studio in Poland. I think you would agree.
yep.
Yep. I think they, from the top of my head, Decapitated, Vader, Behemoth. What's some other stuff they did?
Decapitated, the Behemoth. So they would have Hour of Penance, Behemoth, Vader, Decapitated. There's another one that Hate. They also did Hate.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So pretty much any major international metal band out of Poland that has any international success pretty much has gone through Hertz.
And now you're at Hertz Studio. So could you just elaborate a bit on that? I'm curious about that.
So it makes sense to talk about this a little bit more because for mixing death metal, I came here. So we originally came here in January 2023, so almost a year ago from this video. And we recorded the drum session here. And then I came back in April to do some Patreon videos with them. And just kind of went through, showed them what I was doing and the kind of results I was getting. And they were very happy with the results. And then when I showed them the final result of what we did in January, which ended up being the song for Mixing Death Metal, they were very, very impressed and wanted to work together. We started talking for a couple months, like what would it look like? What would we do? What's it mean? Etc., etc. And we came to basically an agreement and a conclusion. And so I moved from Gdansk to Białystok, which is where their studio is located. And here I am. I am in Studio B, the Studio B mix room. Studio A is right over there with the Neve Genesis Black console, and the live room is right over there. So
you lucky son of a.
So it was a lot of work, and it's really cool actually that this particular event happened for me, and we were able to work together and come to some sort of, I keep saying agreement, but it's like, obviously it's great. I'm going to be in the studio, working in the studio that produced and engineered and mixed a lot of music that I grew up listening to, ironically.
Yeah.
But then also that I'm able to come to the table with things that I know that they want to learn too. So it's very collaborative. It's not like they're here and I'm here and here we are, right? But yeah, it's awesome. I still can't believe it. So pretty dang cool.
I'm jealous. Jealousy is like heightening my day now. No, I'm kidding.
It's just like, you got to remember though, put it all in perspective. How many like 2 decades nearly spent trying just to get here though. So, which if you grab mixing death metal, you can not spend 2 decades. You can maybe spend 5 years.
All right. So for those who don't know, Scott has a course out called Mixing Death Metal. And my question is, what is death metal in your opinion?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't realize we were going to get all philosophical at 10 o'clock in the morning. Gee whiz. So, I mean, we can go with the really technical explanation, which is death metal usually has high tempos, aggressive sounding quad track guitars, low growls, and things like this. And there's a thematic presentation to it, very loud, very brutal, chunky, and the vocals are generally about rainbows and cats. But I mean, this is, definition speaking, that's the most generic we can get, right? So right. It's not in particular, we're not looking to do big atmospheric reverbs like black metal. The vocals are not the same like black metal. These are very clearly more guttural, deep, let's just call it like Corpse Grinder style.
Corpse Grinder, yep.
Yeah, but even not that high in range, or that fast in delivery. But death metal, that would basically be it, which brings a lot of issues along with mixing the genre, which you probably will ask me about, so I'll shut up.
Okay. And then, who is this course for? Is it for like the pure amateur, the professional, or both?
So that's a really good question. In the beginning, I really wanted to make it as applicable to everybody as possible, but that literally is impossible. You can't do that. So you have to have a little bit of mixing experience insofar as if I say, okay, we're going to use a compressor here. If you go, what's that? probably you should get Mixing Your First Metal Song, which is another course of mine, which explains what's an EQ, what's the compressor, and why we use them. That's the level of what that is. Mixing death metal is a lot more, okay, you're already, you know, the training wheels are off, you kind of know your way around what you're trying to do, but you want to specifically understand the problems and tribulations and frustrations of mixing death metal in particular.
I'm just curious, when you mix death metal yourself, what are the challenges you face? For just put it in a broader perspective.
Yeah.
What's difficult about mixing death metal versus, I don't know, doom metal, for example, more atmospheric metal?
Sure.
Because I'm perhaps kind of filling it in for you, but death metal is very extreme, a lot of times very fast, a lot of BS is going on. So what are challenges you face personally when mixing death metal?
I mean, first and foremost, you said it already, it's very fast. But the current trend right now is people want to downtune all their guitars. So they want to have down-tuned guitars while playing fast with double kick and blast beats and 270 BPM. And I mean, if you just do 5 minutes of a basic audio course or how waveforms work, you're going to learn really fast that low-end waveforms take a long time to develop.
Yep.
And they take a lot of headroom, i.e. they eat up a lot of the space in a mix. So like,
right.
So there's the first problem, right? You have double kicks that are really fast. You have a bass guitar that's tuned too low, in my opinion. So a lot of the current trends of how people decide to record and write their music these days are really just self-inflicted wounds. Because death metal in the 90s was, what, E-flat tuning? And that was heavy as hell, right?
Yeah, I think like Morbid Angel.
Yeah, man.
Lower, but let's say E-flat, yeah.
Yeah, so half step down, and then they got 7-string guitars eventually. But still, that'd just be B standard, which is still articulate. But I'm talking about being in like drop G and lower, where, no articulation is an issue, right? So these are all things that you have to figure out how to deal with. Thankfully, Shemek, the guitar player, very good guitar player, very tight, very concise. So the guitar performance, great. Same with the bass, great. That's the first step. If you have really bad performances, like they're not tight, the guitars can't play with themselves, everything's out of order.
And like just putting in context, these are the performances on the course.
Yeah.
Right?
These are So Shemek is the guitar player, and what I mix is what you get, right? And so mixing death metal, I mean the speed, right, and then the balance, right? We keep talking about low end. Low end is always a problem, but low end is different in different genres. What does low end mean for black metal? Lol, there's low end in black metal. Huh? What about low end in country music? What about low end in pop music, rap music? Then you have death metal, which is you want to have a thick, consistent, beefy low end for the size. Well, how do you do that when you got drummer double kicking at 270, a bass player who thinks they can play with their fingers? Right?
I love how you say bass players who think they can play with their fingers, because that's a whole different technique they would pick.
And it always has to be death metal, right?
Of course. Thanks, Alex Webster. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, for ruining it for everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's really that's what makes it hard, because you have to learn how to balance all the low end and figure out how the instruments should work together.
You've been mixing death metal a long time. I've been mixing death metal a long time. Where is death metal going now in the future? Because I'm always interested in like the evolution of metal. Like we had new metal, we had metalcore, deathcore, gent. Where is it going now? Because I now think like a band like Lorna Shore is very popular.
Yep.
But I see there's, in my opinion, a very good band called Spirit Box, which is like, I see it like as the Billie Eilish of the metal scene.
Mm-hmm.
But in death metal, where is it going now, you think?
It's probably going to go back to the beginning, right? Because what are you going to do? Tune lower, add more strings to your guitar? It's getting pretty stupid, in my opinion. I can't remember where I saw this. I think maybe it was even on my Discord where we had this conversation where, we've had 30 years of playing in standard E. It's time to change things. Well, it's like, okay, I understand your point, but also, everyone was in the same tuning, so they had to write good riffs. So you cannot mistake a Slayer riff for a Metallica riff. But tell me a gent band that doesn't sound like another gent band. And it's not, I'm not ripping on gent here. It's just the parameters to be a gent band kind of make you have to be the same.
I would have to say I could. I think there are. So obviously, Meshuggah is the grandfather
Which
of
is
all.
fine. I mean, they did it when no one else did. Great, fantastic. You know, Opeth arguing to be made for them doing their thing.
I always see a band as periphery like Meshuggah with a heavier pop element to it.
Sure.
To like very globalizing it now.
Right.
And Monuments I sometimes see as like Meshuggah with a sprinkle of Michael Jackson on it or something.
By the way, all ridiculous musicians.
Phenomenal.
It's just
phenomenal.
But I mean, if part of playing gent means you have to play odd meters, you have to do odd accents on the snare, and you have to do cha-chugga, you kind of this is kind of like what it is, right? And
right.
And then I'm gonna play a 10-string guitar. Well, 3 strings are useless, really. Instead of just go chung 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 chung. If you want to play Morse code on the open string, that's fine.
Morse code. Why haven't I probably heard that joke, but for some reason I never thought about it.
It is
Morse code on guitar.
I mean, dude, for death metal to become interesting again, it has to evolve, it has to change. And it doesn't necessarily mean we add more strings and we get lower in tuning. It could literally mean we go back to E flat and we do like what Morbid Angel did in 1989.
Like I remember discussing with some other bands that when back in 2015, a band like Arch, do you know Archspire?
Yeah, I know them.
In my opinion, a phenomenal band that some people are saying they are too extreme. And I said, okay, firstly, I almost agree, although they have some very, very killer songs. But I think that being too extreme also sets them apart from the rest. It's something new.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, here's a great example. So when I moved to Russia in 2010, so in 2010, I go to Russia. And I went to a very, very small town in Siberia. Well, it wasn't a small town, but it's in Siberia. 2010. The band, there were high school age kids making new bands that sounded like Korn, because nu metal was still the predominantly popular style of music.
Right.
That shit was long gone in the States. 10 years ago. 10 years in the past already. Like, that shit took a nosedive after what Follow the Leader or whatever that album was.
Right, yeah. Follow the Leader.
So we're kind of running into the situation again where people are going to come late into the party because it's just going down. Like, we hit this thing with Meshuggah and okay, wow, whew, okay then. So where death metal is going to go is probably what it doesn't sound like now. Maybe higher tunings or more old school sounding bands are going to make a comeback. Yeah, I don't really... Nothing's new anymore. Like, I don't want people to get mad, but you know, if your idea is, oh, we're going to do Nile, but we're going to add orchestra. Okay, cool. Flesh God Apocalypse and Our Penance, they got already that taken care of. So you either do it better than them, which will be really hard, or do something else.
So then, globally, and like in metal in general, but also perhaps death metal, where is metal production going?
That's going to go backwards for sure.
Because I notice now that people are getting more and more tired of overly sampled drums.
Of course.
That is just the drum aspect of it.
People don't actually understand how produced music is. Even organically raw music has been touched in ways that in the 90s you could only dream of.
I saw an interview with Bob Rock that back in the 80s they already did vocal tunings.
Yeah. So people have this false idea that in the 80s and the 70s it was true. I'm like, I'm sorry. The moment they had a razor blade and you realized they could cut tape and it was over. They've got studio... You don't tell me they weren't slowing down the reels. You know, come on. I think Rasmussen even admitted that Metallica slowed down the reels, played slower, and then sped it up to speed.
I think you're correct about this.
I don't want to hear nothing about this. I mean, it's like there's a threshold though. Like technically perfect music, completely perfect in every single way, sounds weird.
So to round this up, could you give people 2 tips? One regarding recording, okay. One regarding mixing.
For death metal or just in general?
Yes. I think perhaps the tips for death metal could even be general. I don't know. Up to you.
Okay. Well, I mean, recording is have the patience to be objective enough to admit when the take is not good enough and do it again.
It's funny because I'm thinking of a story when we were recording Guitars for Aborted here for the album Terror Vision, I remember sitting down and Ian, the other guitar player, was tracking just by himself, like the riffs. And I was just sitting down, and I could just, at some point at 11 p.m., he just stumbled down the stairs, grabbed the beer from the fridge, slammed the door from the fridge, and went back up because he was like tracking for 5 hours to get one riff right.
Yep. I mean, the Terror Vision turned out amazing. I mean, Cola did the mix. It's all sweet.
Oh, yeah.
But it matters when the performance is intact as possible.
So lastly, we now talked about recording, but one global tip regarding mixing.
So my number one mixing advice, honestly, would be to surround yourself with people who are better than you. And in particular, people who create the mixes that you like. So if that person is Joey Sturgis, go to Nail the Mix. Try to get a phone call with Joey Sturgis, or try to just put yourself in that position, in that community, and learn from those people. If it's Mixing Death Metal, Cola, who's got the Cola Audio Cult, all right? You can talk to him. He's a very nice guy. You know, he'll answer your emails. Me, whatever. But spend money to grow. Not plugins, spend money to grow. Because Cubase 13 just came out, and oh my god, you don't need anything anymore. Third party. Except for mastering, but that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, mixing wise these days, Cubase 13 Pro, you literally don't need anything else.
Awesome last words. All right, so make sure you check out Scott's course, Mixing Death Metal. I'll put the link in the description box down below. And Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man. It was awesome. It's always a good time to hang out and chat.
Likewise. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Have a good one.